Tim and I are here talking with John Bruno, director of Virus, which is now out on Blu-ray. Yeah. A cult classic now, which is incredible. It feels like it just got released yesterday or a few years ago.
It's a really cool thing. I have to. A very good friend of ours.
Yes.
Sherman Augustus is in Virus.
Yep.
Directed by John. John, say hello to the folks.
Hello, everyone.
Out of the DigiGods world. And Sherman is in Virus. John directed Virus, and Sherman did me a solid by hooking us up with John.
Yes, he did.
To be able to talk about the release of Blu-ray. So anyway, what year anniversary of this is? 1999, right? If I'm not mistaken. Virus.
So that's.
I keep thinking it was 1998, but.
Because you guys were shooting in '98.
Well, we were shooting.
Well, it's 18, 19 years, so yeah. that's
it's at least 19 years.
And John, you go deep as far as genre films. I mean, you go back to Poltergeist and Ghostbusters, and you come up all the way. You've been with James Cameron as a special effects person for 28 years.
Right.
And so you go deep in this genre. Comic-Con people, they know your name.
Yeah, it seemed like forever. Every film I was working on was films that were released in the summer. So, they're always big. They're always, films that end with explosions.
Films that begin with explosions
and end with explosions.
Films that end with explosions. Walk us back a little bit, because practical effects. You were a practical effects guy.
Well,
explain what that is, as opposed to some of the sort of CGI stuff, which a lot of effects now are CGI stuff. Explain the difference between what you were doing back then and now, and what goes on a lot now.
Well, I mean, my background initially was animation, so one day I got in line to see this film, Star Wars. I had 10 years in animation. I saw this movie, and I walked out of the theater, turned around and got in line again to see it again, because I wasn't sure what I saw.
Yeah.
I didn't know how any of that was done. And I thought, I want to do that. Whatever, I don't care what, I want to do that. And I got, and right after that, I got hired to do the movie Heavy Metal with Ivan Reitman as a producer. And I moved to Montreal, did that film, and while I was there, Richard Edlund, who was the visual effects supervisor of Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, and what was the other one?
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Was showing Empire Strikes Back at the Canadian Film Board, and I walked in and I said to Richard, "Hi, my name's John. I'm an animation guy. I want to do what you do." And he says, "Here's my card. Give me a call." So I ended up in Los Angeles doing post on Heavy Metal. And I called him, and he says, "Well, come on down to come over to MGM. We're posting Raiders of the Lost Ark."
Oh, wow!
So I go down there, and I'm sitting in Steven Spielberg's office. Spielberg walks by. George Lucas walks by, and there's a poster that says, "From the producers of Jaws and Star Wars." Or the makers of Star Wars and Star Wars. Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I thought, I don't belong here. And I swear to God, I had a reel under my arm. I got up, I was going to leave, and Richard came in and says, "Oh, you want to show that reel?" And I said, "Yeah." So I went in, showed them the reel, and they hired me to set up the animation department at ILM.
Wow.
Which was Poltergeist, Star Trek II, Jedi, and E.T.
Wow.
So I ran that department.
Wow.
And Richard left to come to L.A., and we started Boss Films. That was with Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
That's my short story.
Well,
that's great.
And of course, the technology we're talking about from back then is completely different than the technology of today.
So, yeah, all those, what I learned at ILM from Richard and all the guys there, which is a terrific team. I looked at it as I got to go to school and was being paid to go to school. So but the goal from everybody in everybody's mind was photorealism. How do we do photorealism? So if you couldn't do it for real in camera, the scenes were very short. I mean, the shots in Poltergeist are 11 frames, 18 frames. The longest one is 31 frames.
Yeah.
Today they're 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But and they did, the imploding house was a big model turned on its back and pulled through cables down through a hole in the ground. And we animated glass and flickers and light. So I came up through that. And then the first job that we had, and then the closet was a little miniature door. I think it was like 2.5 feet in Poltergeist with the lights coming. So in order to get light bright enough, in order to get debris thrown in at the right scale, but it was in camera. That was always the point. And then when Richard went to Open Boss Film in Los Angeles, it was 65 millimeter, meaning that's 4 or 5 times larger than regular 35 film. You had better opportunity to do a lesser and almost invisible matte line. So, because I became, we called it the chemical process of blue screen, chemicals. So if we thought we couldn't get a good composite, we just shoot a model or a miniature. Ghostbusters shows up, and they said, the goal from Ghostbusters, we have 10 months, this movie will release. How do we get it done? That was, okay, then it's models and miniature. We're going to have a guy in a suit.
I was going to say, this is, I'm thinking of the whole scene, when the Stay Puft...
There was no digital, I got to think of that.
Yeah.
But a guy in a suit against a blue screen. We're going to have the terror dog. We're going to have the goat, any ghost was just shot against black and we call it and DX or cross dissolved into a background, transparent. No matte line problem. But that movie, and then with the animation we did, the explosion of the building it was a 15-foot section of the building that exploded for real at high speed. So I learned all of that, and I guess if anybody wants to learn anything from this, animation rhythm, timing, and understanding how much you see in 8 frames is very important. So that movie, of course, Jim Cameron then cast Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, and we started talking about, because he did practical play. Aliens is really, full-size queen, a puppet queen, 4 feet tall, 3 feet tall. I redid that in Alien versus Predator, but at 4 feet, 4-foot puppet, in camera, and a 9-foot tall puppet, a 16-foot tall puppet of the queen in Alien versus Predator. And then everything we couldn't do with that was animated, digitally.
So the queen in Cameron's Alien was a 4-foot tall, full-size puppet.
Full size.
Okay.
And when it had to move, it was a rod puppet.
That Frank Oz type thing.
Yeah.
Guys beneath the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's great.
So there was no digital.
But it was better without digital. It really, you're not.
But
sort
it's
of...
photography. The difference is, even today, I still recommend when a film to keep things within a budget. The Abyss was 5. We had the only thing digital in the Abyss was the water tentacle, but the submarines were at different scales of full-size practical 40-foot section, a 40-foot submarine shot in water, a 14-foot submarine shot on a smoke stage, the sub chase with flatbed and deep core. Flatbed was about 5 feet, radio controlled in a swimming pool that we milked up to make it look hazy. Nothing digital. We had, except for the first really, to me, surprising and satisfactory case of something looking photoreal was the water tentacle.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's only 16 cuts in that.
Now, that was the first time...
And I got an Oscar for that.
Yeah, you won a few Oscars. That was the first time that water tentacle thing had been used. That became a thing, that effect. You know, obviously it became a very important effect in Terminator 2, which you also worked on.
Yeah.
Talk about that transition there, when those digital effects... I remember the morphine effect when that first happened. Michael Jackson had a video. What was that video? Black and white.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And all the faces. Talk about when the digital effects started coming in.
Morphing was the big. That was the big. If you could do that, then you solved it. You had to animate one shape into another shape.
Yeah.
Smoothly, and have a computer try to figure it out. But on the Abyss. You know, one day I was sitting with Mike Pangrazio. Pangrazio was the matte painter at ILM. We were going to go to lunch, and we were sitting on the couch. I was waiting for someone else. We were going to go across the street. This is on Kerner Optical Company in San Rafael. Still there, but it's ILM.
Yeah.
And George stands in the doorway and says, "Go next door to Sprocket Systems and have Alvy, somebody, have him show you how computers work." What? It's that simple. And so Mike and I go over there.
What year is this?
This is 80? Somewhere early 80s.
Yeah.
And computers were just more of a, to me, accountant's tool. You could organize things. But you know, trying to draw something it wasn't quite there. I didn't think so. The first effect that was being worked on it was Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, was the Genesis effect.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The Genesis effect, where the planet catches on fire, right? This moon, and creates an atmosphere. It was a 1-minute shot. So I went next door, and we sat there, and you know, Mike Pangrazio said, "George said you're supposed to show us how computers work." And the guy looked at me and just took a deep, and we had a monitor, and he goes, "Okay, here's a grid, and it's on black, a white grid, squares, you know, like a checkerboard."
Uh-huh.
He goes, "Each one of these cross intersections is a point in space. So if you put like a water surface on this, and you pin it to each of these things, you can then rotate it to match your scene or roll it up in a tube." I never forgot that. That's the water tentacle.
Really? That was the foundational moment in your head.
Subconscious. So I believed, because when we actually went out and tried to, you know, I brought the storyboards. I pre-storyboarded the movie, and we went to there were 3 big effects houses at the time in Los Angeles, one being ILM, Apogee, and I forget what the other one was.
And Apogee was John Dykstra's company, yeah.
And nobody else said, "Oh, we can do water." And they showed us things that were anybody that was in computer graphics had sort of, I called it was liquid mercury things, or chrome people, or chrome, that not quite good animation. It was kind of really annoying to me, actually, or something that looked like wiggling mercury. And they said, "Well, we can take this and just take the reflection off until it looks like plastic." I went, "Well, I don't know." So, but ILM, Dennis Murin and John Knoll, I think it was at the time, showed us some moving, you know, liquid mercury stuff, and said, we can do it. We just need development money." But Jim and I sat in a room and said, "Well, look, I trust ILM. They're kind of ahead in certain places. I don't know if they can do it, but if anybody's going to do it, it's them," because we had other things to deal with at the time. And the very first test was this thing moving like that. And I went, "Oh, geez, look at that." The next thing that had to be invented, though, for the whole effect to work was morphing, which ILM invented. And that was the first time it became somebody's face, and you could manipulate it. Am I speaking too much on this?
No,
not at all. This is fascinating. This is a great trip down memory lane.
And the sort of development of this technology.
Right. So what did that lead to? The water pseudopod, again, trying to be photoreal. Everything with visual effects, they have to look photoreal to me or my compadres, or it doesn't work. It takes you out of the movie. That looked real. Still looks real today. That concept of the next time it was used was Jurassic Park. You had a wireframe dinosaur wrapped in a skin that you can then have to animate. But you could turn it around and you could have source light and go, oh. Mm-hmm. But you painted the skin texture and you made it look whatever. Nobody's going to tell you that that's incorrect because we don't have one running around that I know of. But that was the next, that got us to Jurassic Park.
And
Terminator 2 I left out.
Yeah.
That was so the second iteration was, and people are going to laugh because there's effects shows now, they have 2,000, 2,500 effect shots in them, right? Terminator 2, the character, the T-1000 cop, there's 41 shots.
That's it.
Really?
Yeah. So again, keeping in my trying to do things practical, I looked at this and went to Stan Winston. I said, somebody should make a chrome or a silver cop jacket, put a chrome face on the guy and a chrome helmet and chrome glasses. And he can be fighting with Arnold. And then when he can't do certain things, those are digital shots.
That's fascinating because I don't think I ever knew
If you look at the movie,
I don't think I ever knew
there's a guy. It's not a guy in a. I mean, again, it's quick cuts. I mean, punch and a throw.
Which frankly, in Jurassic Park as well. I mean, the really close-up stuff is animatronic.
It's animatronic. It's still quite useful to gather what is the lighting source, the color, what's supposed to look like past this, right, for the rest of the film. So there were 41 shots, and I remember I storyboarded all this stuff out, and I was sitting with Jim looking at him. He goes, I said, you remember the first thing we saw from the abyss? The first thing out of the computer in the water pseudopod was a chrome weenie, this wiggly chrome thing. So that means we can definitely do a chrome guy because it's the first thing that the computer does before you start dealing with the reflection. And so the shot of when the guy captures the T-1000 captures the helicopter and pours himself in, that's the pseudopod. And then he sits up and says, "Get out."
Yeah.
That was the second transition to, I said, yeah, but can we do 41 shots? That was the big deal.
Which is probably pretty costly at the time, too, I imagine.
It was $1 million.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you're dropping names that to me, it's like the pantheon of special effects greats, because the modern era of special effects really begins, we could say theoretically it begins with 2001.
Correct.
And then it takes a big giant leap with the Close Encounters and Star Wars. But I mean, you're dropping names here. I mean, let me
Winston, Stan Winston.
Doug Trumbull.
When Richard Badlands left ILM, Boss Film Corporation was
Doug
EEG.
Trumbull. Right.
So he was partners with Doug Trumbull and Richard Urasich.
I was just going to say the Urasich brothers, Ken Ralston, Dennis Murin,
Matt Painter.
You know all these guys.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable to me. I mean, these are like, I used to,
I was in heaven. I mean, I was like,
that magazine Cinefex.
Cinefex, I remember Cinefex.
Remember Cinefex? It was that glossy, that small kind of half-size glossy.
Like 6 covers.
Came out.
You have 6 covers on Cinefex.
Came out every month. I used to go to Westwood, a little comic store in Westwood. I'm in high school. We're geeking out.
Sean Shea, a good friend of mine.
Yeah, we would go over to this comic store called Graffiti, and we would just check that new episode of that new issue of Cinefex, and it was like $7 or $8, and we're like, oh, that really hurts. but I'm going to get it. You know, that was amazing.
And that everything in there was, we paid special attention to make it true and not hold back.
Yeah.
Because by the time you did the movie, whatever secret you had, it's out. So, and I go back through Cinefex sometimes and I have all of them, right? So I go back and I look at, oh shit, I forgot. Oh, sorry. I forgot. That's the simpler way to do it than what I'm thinking of. Why don't we do that?
Now that's what I think Tim wanted to get to as well, because do people overthink these things from an effects standpoint? I mean, obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy, that's mayhem. That's effect mayhem. I don't even know how you begin to conceptualize that. But have we gotten to a place where people are now lazy, where if there's a thing that would be cheaper and more cost effective and better storytelling
and look better,
with practical effects, but they just don't want to have to think it through, so it's like, just do it in CGI.
There's some of that. I mean, part of it is they don't teach model building and miniature work or how to do it as much in camera as possible. Christopher Nolan, British, wants to do everything in camera. And they have, of course, example, the flying Batmobile chasing movie.
One of the Dark Knight movies.
But it's flying through city streets. Well, that's practical. And it's on a big hydraulic rig.
Full size.
Under a sort of I guess, say a framed up, I'll call it a race car, but a go-kart system or car system all framed up with hydraulic rigs on it. And it's driving at speed and it's banking and it's being controlled. And you're just painting that out. Now on True Lies was another situation where that was the first digital movie I actually did. And it's like, well, how do we get this guy, how do we get the Arnold character to fly around in a Harrier? Jim insisted on a Harrier, taking off and flying around landing. And the digital guys that were at Digital Domain, because that company was built to do that movie, to start with that movie.
Digital Domain, yeah.
Digital Domain. We
had,
I had 30 people. 30 digital artists, and then Rob Legato came in, and at the same, following that they were overlapping in Apollo 13, and everybody hired there were digital people, and they said, well, we can do this digitally. I went, show me somewhere, because you can buy online a Harrier jet. I went, that not only does that not look real, it's not even the current model of a Harrier jet. So after we storyboarded the movie, we did 2 Harrier models 7 feet long and a full-size Harrier to shoot on stage at first. And then in the discussion with Jim and other people, it's like, well, how many of we're going through the boards and we got to get the budget right. And it's like, well, this guy's hanging on the wing here later in the story. He's on the wing. Well, maybe we hang a wing off like a parking structure or something, and then to find something.
Buster
and
Keaton style.
And then it turned into, why don't we just put the whole jet up there?
Yeah.
And then Jim said, why don't you go ask the crane guy how much weight that crane will support? And then I went to Tommy Fisher, who's our special effects guy, floor effects guy. Can you support this Harrier with actors on it? We'll find a balance point. Can you hold this? He goes, yeah, I'll just put a 2-inch cable and we'll clamp it here. And yeah, there's no way that thing will break. And then I went to the stunt guy, Joel. I'll come back with that.
Joel the stunt guy.
Joel the stunt guy. I'm sorry. He's going to kill me if he hears this. But Kramer, sorry. Joel Kramer. He goes, okay, I'll be in the jet if you want to swing it out over the street. I went, swing it out over the street? I mean, all these ideas
are actually, so this is stuff that's actually progressing. It's,
yeah.
I mean, so you went from little jet, model jet, a little bit bigger model jet.
I was going to hang a
wing,
model jet over the building and film that.
And now we got an actual jet hanging from a cable off a crane with a dude in it.
So the jet is 7,000 pounds, the mock-up. I went to the crane operator and he goes, I can support 10. He goes, so you're within a safety zone. Well, and then we puppeted it. Then we swung it over the street, and we had cables on the wingtips, and we would move the jet left and right, and the crane would swing it. That's how it was flying. And then we digitally composited the engine fans and this what we call the heat signature, which is this jet exhaust, blasting this jet exhaust down over an actual practical in-camera element. And when we landed it on the street, the same thing happened. When we landed it, it hit a cop car. So David Fincher one day, with Arnold in it and Elijah Dushku, the young girl.
Oh, that's great.
50 feet. The crane driver just said, and we said, "Don't go above the palm trees." And he goes, he swung it up 50 feet, pulled it up 50 feet. It landed, hit a cop car. Showed this to David Fincher, and David says, "Okay, I know how you did this. How did I do it?" He goes, "It's a miniature cop car, and then it's a miniature at the start, and there's a blend in there where you have all that stuff blowing, and then that miniature hits a miniature cop car." I went, "No, it's all in camera." Yeah. But people were pulling their hair out, like, "How did you do that? How did you, Jamie Lee, hang it?" Jamie Lee hung off that helicopter. She insisted to Jim, "I want to do this. I want to do it for real."
I remember that. That was the whole thing. In that little black dress. Sherman Augustus just walked in. Sherman, go ahead and grab your mic. Go ahead and grab your mic there. So you can grab it right out of there.
Sherman.
Sorry for being late.
That's all right.
I had put in the wrong flex capacitor in my car, so I had to go back to the future and then get that one to take it to the other mechanic in the past, and now I'm here in the present. So I'm here.
And Sherm is blowing up big right now on Into the Badlands as the character Moon, who is a pretty great character, I gotta say. I'm
chopping and slashing and hacking his way.
I have to say, a really good character.
Yeah.
Now, the first time you hired Sherman, Sherman's worked for you more than just in Virus. Sherman worked for you on, was it Voyager? Which Star Trek did
Voyager? Well, he was the catalyst for me getting that job because he recommended me.
I did Tinker Tenor Doctor Spy, which I'm told is a classic.
Yeah. You're told correctly.
And you came by to visit.
Yeah.
And I all Klingons are black guys.
the really scary
and I understand why they're mad all the time. That appliance is heavy. And it was probably, the hottest summer that year.
98,
and
98.
You cannot get out of that stuff. And when you have to use the bathroom, you have to, actually disrobe your whole wardrobe. And that wig was heavy. So, yeah.
And
18-hour days.
You got to play a Klingon, though, dude.
No, yeah, and I understand why Klingons are pissed off.
And then, of course, that leads to, I guess, eventually him working for you in Virus, which is the movie.
That
was after Virus.
That was after Virus.
Before, yeah. I don't know who hears all that what we're talking about, but the casting process is a hideous process.
Yeah.
And from my side to the actor's side, I don't know if I should cross the line and say what people say. The actor walks in and actor walks out and it's like.
I think it's been a long time. I think it's okay. Go ahead and say it.
I always complain.
Yeah. So I had written this film with Dennis Feldman, and it was a Dark Horse comic. So everybody insisted that we stick to the comic book because it was a big seller, and in there was a guy with long hair, Richie, white guy, smoked dope, and so in my mind that's the guy. So Sherman comes in, and he just starts talking, and you made up on the spot, I think.
I just started talking.
Yeah, he just started talking and said, "Hello there, Mr. Cable."
Yeah.
And when you said that, I went, "This is the guy." You completely talked to yourself, and that you were him.
Yeah.
To me.
Well, actually, Tim helped me develop that guy with I wanted the roach clip around my neck. So
yeah.
We
that whole
talked
roach
about all
clip
that.
thing.
Yeah,
The whole thing.
We did all that. Yeah.
It was ridiculous. Because he and I have been diddling around with this kind of stuff for years and years and years and years. It was actually all quite funny. And then of course, pressing forward, Avatar by the time you get to Avatar, Harrier jets on cranes and all that kind of stuff is gone. And you got these blue people, and you got this. So talk about that transition into the world of your work as it exists today.
But even though Avatar is all digital, the theory is the same. It's just how you complete it. And when I was on that, I did heavy metal. I did the Tarna, the girl on the bird.
Oh yeah.
And doing all these shots, and the guys at Weta are sending me these clips from Tarna. And I'm like, oh man, come on, don't bring that up. But it's like, no, I mean, that hit a chord. So I thought, well, this is going to work with the public. I think this whole idea of flying is going to really work with this girl on this creature, the Banshees.
Yeah.
But I went into that. That technology, which was first discussed with Rob Legato, brought that to Jim, saying, "Look, we can have this space on a stage that's the 3D volume, going back to the water tentacle. That's the 3D volume, but we're taking it from here to a stage. Mm-hmm. So everybody puts on these little suits, and you walk on different, you're looking. It looks kind of silly when you're watching it, but what you're seeing, because what the cameras are getting and feeding through computers back to you on a handheld monitor is the actual image, because you have the background, low resolution, but the background that you're in, you're looking at it like a computer screen, but you're holding it right? like an iPad. So. And wherever you go in the volume, you see what's in the world you're supposed to be in.
Okay, yeah.
So that was new to me, and I had to learn that at the time. Other guys were I consider far advanced, but then basically Jim said, I'm here doing this, and I have, and they're starting to do shots at Weta, and I just want somebody that I really know. Can you do this? And I went, yeah. Again, I'll go to school. You pay me to go to school. It's okay. I didn't think I would have much impact. Well, once I got there, I talked to Joe Lettieri, who I knew, who I consider one of the best visual effects supervisors ever, and it'll be hard to top this guy. He created Weta for Lord of the Rings, etc. I talked to him and said, look, I'm not going to come down there if you think I'm going to interfere with your process. He goes, no, I could use help. We just need eyes, This is like, nobody knows how it's going to work. One shot at that time, once you started the shot, you wouldn't see it for 9 months. By the end of the film, Avatar, it was 3 months. So it's going to be quicker this next few rounds. And they double the capacity of their computer hardware.
And also, a lot of the modeling has been done now. I mean,
we know what it's supposed to look like. We made our mistakes. We did all our stuff.
Because I know Cameron was talking about that. He says the next films are going to be cheaper because all the pieces that had to be built from scratch, the digital pieces, they all exist now. Yes. So it's you
and they'll be refined and tweaked a little bit.
Yeah.
But and they know how to do it. So. But going down there, I just like they call it the Weta way. I just like the way they approached work. All had to look real. Does this look real? That's all I ever did. Everything is like, does this look real? Why doesn't this look real? You have a big monitor, a big screen. We would project it full size and go through the whole frame of a shot and say, that doesn't look right. This doesn't look right. How do we fix that? There was no real finals on that film till the very end. And then we found out by the time we got to the end, there were 3 shots in the beginning that Jake Avatar was lost, and he has his spear and he's looking around, and Neytiri's up on a branch, and she's gonna nail him, right, with an arrow, and it's like, and she, with the little sprite lands on the tip of her bow, and it's like, don't do that. Well, he looked like a dark blue version of Spock. Really weird. I mean, when we got back toward the end of the movie and went forward and checked the shots, like, should we redo anything? There's 3 shots in the beginning. It didn't look anything like Jake.
Because that was what you guys had learned and
Yes.
were applying literally in the process of working. By the time you got to the end of that, what you said, 3 months, right?
Yeah.
The work you had done at the front, you could make better. Just by what you
but
would
we had to look at the whole movie and realize that didn't look like Jake. Now we should redo that. But you know, Weta and Letary and all those guys, they're fantastic. I mean, they're fantastic.
So then where are we now? What would you say the status is today? You know, because most of the stuff that I'm looking at, Wade and I, we're film critics. We see big giant special effects movie. What was the big one?
I just saw one I just saw Pirates of the Caribbean. The what's it? The subheading worst movie ever made. Something
Pirates
like
of the Caribbean,
Something
the worst
like
movie ever made.
Yeah.
You know, in 2003, I think was that first one, right?
Yep.
2003. I mean, that's 15 years on. In terms of technology and everything, that movie looks worse than the first movie.
Yeah, it does.
Different people. It's how you perceive what. It's which director, which art director, which artist, which digital artist do you know, pending budget, all wants photoreal. I mean, that's the goal. And some films I watch, I enjoy them, but you know, I don't worry about if they look real or not, because some don't. I don't have to say what they are, but who's this is the first or second? The octopus guy. I'm blanking.
Well, that's the second. That's the Davy Jones.
Davy Jones.
Davy Jones. Yeah.
Spectacular.
Yeah, that was great.
I won an Oscar for that, and I had done X-Men 3, and I voted for them. I got nominated. You know, I was trying to get nominated, but I voted for that being the best picture. And John Knoll was supervised that, and it's just photoreal. Maybe there's stuff around him isn't, but your focus is on something that makes you sit up in your seat. You know, like, wow, that's cool. Yeah. And if you don't, you got to do that every time, though. That's the issue.
Well, it's always been a problem for me. I mean, if you know, for folks who've listened to me on the show, whenever Wade and I have been on the Film Week show, and a big special effects movie was the thing. Generally speaking, for me, make it practical.
Yeah.
I have to believe that it is there in the room, in the scene, whatever it is. I got to believe it's there. Even if it's not, you still have to make me believe it is. Maybe you can get away with it if it's not the thing I'm supposed to be looking at, right? So say I'm supposed to be looking at something else, and that background has been helped out a little bit. Well,
it's like in Zodiac. I mean, in Zodiac, tons and tons of those backgrounds are completely CG.
Exactly.
But you're not thinking
1970s,
whatever to achieve that. But you never if you're looking at the background, then that actor ain't working right, you know. So it just that's beautiful to me. But when it's supposed to be the thing I'm looking at, Dragonheart, that dragon, Dragonheart. I mean, it's called Dragonheart. The dragon has to look real, and if the dragon don't look real, we're done. And so that's the spot that I get to. So often now they bail well before they even get close to making the thing I'm supposed to be looking at in this movie look real.
I still have not seen. Look, it's been over a decade since Reign of Fire, right? Reign of Fire.
Yeah.
I mean, we moved on to technology, but that's the best looking dragon I think I've ever seen to this day.
I agree.
That is an amazing dragon.
So when that dragon falls out of the sky and that big thing, you know, and then you have the giant practical dragon down there, you know, and I believe that all the way from the sky to the ground, to the actual practical effect. Tell me again where you guys shot Virus. It was in one of the Carolinas, right?
North Carolina, and then we moved up to Newport News, Virginia.
So talk a little bit about that. You had a big giant ship that you were actually on.
Well, the
Vandenberg.
Yeah, the Vandenberg comic book has the Yuri Gagarin in it. It's a Russian satellite tracking ship, 700 feet long, that had been scrapped because we'd shot the opening scenes of Titanic, but the movie wasn't there yet. I made 4 dives on the ship, Titanic, in a mere submarine, and I lived on the Russian ship, the Kelch. And so my whole experience.
You made 4 dives on the Titanic?
Yeah, For Jim, it was the
that documentary he made, right?
Yeah, it was a 1995 Titanic expedition.
You say that like I went down to 7-Eleven.
That's why I had to stop and go back. I had to back up a little bit.
It's all a blur. But Jim, there was this whole thing when we did the Abyss. The first submersible dive I ever made was on the Kirk Pride in the Grand.
The Grand Caymans?
Grand Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
There's a Kirk Pride.
Yeah.
700 or 800 feet to this wreck, which was 250 feet long. And we did that determined the size of our things and what you could see underwater. So, Jim said, after when the Abyss was done, he goes, after True Lies, he said, he called me one day and said, I was up for Virus, I think. It was
the directing game.
Jim called me and said, I'm going to dive the Titanic, but you can't tell anybody. Can't tell a soul. And just left. And I got some screaming phone calls from Gail Hurd. I remember that. But we were in St. John's, Newfoundland, and so what it was Jim was going to dive, document the ship, try to get a movie made because we got to see if it's possible. And we used film. We used 2-perf Technoscope because that's all that would fit in the cameras. And Jim's brother, Mike Cameron, built these titanium housings that could take full ocean. Well, they're practical to full ocean depth, but we were going to be at 12,500. And I said, well, we have one roll of film. We have 400 feet, and so we're going to shoot it 12 frames a second instead of 24 in order to get the images. And went down, and we had a techno a 2-perf projector sent out to the ship, and we put that, and we'd watch dailies.
No kidding.
In one of the rooms, right? And that's Titanic. And so I was with Al Giddings in Mir 2 with the lighting package, and we would skirt along the front, the deck, and up the front. We call the crow's nest, where the crow's nest was, that post.
Yeah.
So I'm in the movie, but I'm in the submarine. And I did have lunch in front of the Bronze Telemotor, best lunch I ever had. Cold hot dog. It's a Russian lunch then. Cold hot dog, or submariner's lunch. Let me knock the Russians. But a cold piece of bread and I think it's broccoli. Best lunch I ever had. So this experience... I was out there, and I had the script to Virus. So I started writing in the characters that are in the Mir space. Oh, and then every Wednesday, I would go, there's Valeria, I think the girl's Valeria is her name. She was the scientist. This was a science vessel, 18 science labs on it. One guy had a blue laser, green laser, with a mirror that would stick out the side of the ship, and he'd hit that mirror to get a density reading of the ocean at wherever we were.
Oh,
he had a big book, and they would do it every day. And he'd turn it around and 45-degree angle and pop it up vertical as the Mir space station went over, and they would talk to the guys. That's where that stuff came from. Where I have Joanna Pakula talking to the Mir space station playing chess.
Vectors.
Yeah.
They were using vectors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
love it.
And that was all to get, air particles, the amount of particles, the brightness of that laser beam at that height or that depth. What does it read? So, Jim, the one thing that Jim said, I said, well, I don't know if I can do this movie. I mean, it seems really big. My first movie. And he said, just make it your own, man. And then, while we were at sea, we went through Hurricane Lewis.
Yeah.
Which was a kick-ass storm. And that one, of course, that's how the movie opens.
Yeah.
And it's what I remember visually. Yeah, there's no.
So
this whole thing about
you took that experience and put it into your script. Yeah.
What was the best part of making Virus? I mean, big movies, effects movies, sci-fi movies. Everybody always says they come with they're great, but they come with baggage. So you got fun, but you got fun mixed in with a lot of stress and a lot of headaches. Where you got to.
Nobody. I'm talking from the director point here. Nobody can. That's my first movie.
The Sea Star accidentally sunk, right?
What?
When they got it there.
What?
Remember when the Sea Star the Sea Star sinks?
Yeah.
But it was there that day, and it was just sitting there, and then it just went underwater a couple of days before it just.
I mean, yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, Spielberg couldn't get that shark act right.
Yeah.
So nobody can. I don't care what anybody tells you. They sit you down like, let's have a talk. This is what it's going to be like directing. There's no way that anybody can give you the speech. Because I would call Jim and say, Jim, I need the talk. He goes, what talk? What happens if it says, you gotta, that's being a director, man. You gotta go with it.
Wow. He
was doing Titanic. So his problems were far superior to my problems. And we would talk on every Sunday. Me at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
When he was rapping, midnight in Mexico, and he'd just ask me what's going on, and I'd tell him, and what's going on with you, and he goes, I think they're going to fire me. I said, but it's going over. I said, well, I'm going over, and then he goes, don't let him get. You got to just get in there, man. You just got to do it, and that's what kept me going. Because it was a big technical film that relied on a big army of people to get these shots that involved actors. It wasn't because it was all practical.
Yeah.
So actors were in the shots. Not that we could just go in, and I think that's what happens today with people. They think we don't want to deal with all that. We'll just put them in. Actors in front of a green screen, and we'll put that stuff in later when we're not going to, because principal photography is the most important thing to a studio. We got to finish on this many days because it's $200,000 a day, maybe more today. And if we can get that done, then we can take our time going back. Or if you don't know what it looks like out the window, because we used to, Cameron, everybody used to use RP. If you're driving in a car, something being projected in the window. It's in camera. Well, they don't do that anymore. It's green screen. We'll figure out what goes in there later. You get done faster, but I think there's more panic in that than knowing what's in your shot.
We actually had things to look at that actually was.
You could react to the creature.
We were reacting to something that was real, instead of having a director. Okay, you see it over here. Okay, it moves over there. It's behind you now. No, I mean, they were when things were thrown at you, it was thrown at you. When things were breaking apart, it was when you. Breaking apart. When you had to shoot something, you had to shoot something. And
I think there's a lesson in that too. That practical effects are not just great for an audience, not just great for storytelling, but they're great when you're acting. They're great for actors.
Exactly.
You had to drop an anchor. There's a scene you drop an anchor on the tugboat. That's real.
Yep. Yep. I had to stop that anchor too.
Yeah.
That was real.
Well, as I run that movie in my head, I think about how many shots today, how many of those shots would be CGI. How much of that would just be CGI, just period.
You could do it CGI today, but not in camera, not quick, not for the same price. But I mean that's the job.
It's the trade-off.
Well, so settle this question for us. You would know the answer to the question. What is more expensive, CGI or practical? And I know that these things go together to a certain extent, but in a bottom line kind of way, the notion has always been that CGI will be way less expensive. It doesn't seem to be less expensive. How do these things break down price wise?
Well, when Digital Domain was set up. Even George Lucas used to say shots will be $16,000 a shot. in the digital world, and it, then people would build their own companies because then they don't have to charge themselves any overhead. But digital shots, I don't want to get into the price, but certain things. What used to be shots was wire removal. No longer a shot. It was like $2,000, $700. Somebody paint that out. It used to be $25,000. But all that stuff's coming down. But what I look at in certain shots is you have 25 artists doing a creature. Well, each one of them's doing the creature the way they see the creature. There's not one. If you have something practical in the shot, the lighting's the same across 25 cuts, and the movement's the same. And there should be, like in traditional animation, a key creature supervisor. That animation poses, things like that. Airplanes flying through shots. What's the Christopher Nolan film about time travel?
Time travel.
What was that one?
I was thinking of the one where
Interstellar.
Oh, Interstellar, right? Yeah.
All right, so that's a big practical spaceship on a crane. They move it around, big camera on it, spinning it around, doing all that stuff's in camera. He, above anybody today, does stuff as much in camera as possible, and 70 millimeter IMAX plates. Wow. If you're watching a movie, even Batman, the screen's here, and then suddenly it goes like that.
Yeah,
that's IMAX, and it goes back. But just to get the detail and quality and richness of the look of film. Now, these new red cameras, stuff like what they can do, they can get there. It's just I think I still would, when I storyboard a scene or for a movie, I just look at it as what can we at first as can we do this for real? I don't think this can be done for real, so that's going to be I'll put a red sticker on that drawing. And when you go through it, it's like, okay, we have a jet. Well, we're going to build one this big, and we can use it in this shot, this shot, this shot. Okay, we build one jet, not two.
Okay.
And it just, that's my approach to it. But so in Virus, they didn't want any digital shots. I mean, that was still, it was more expensive to do things digital than the practical.
The studio didn't want any digital shots.
Well, it was more expensive
at that back time.
Then. But at the end, we couldn't get the robots to do everything. So Phil Tippett came in, and whenever the robot moves really well, it's a digital shot, and they match perfectly. One example of puppets. There's Donald Sutherland walks into the engine into the computer room where everybody's got their bodies are being repurposed.
The creature shop too.
Then he there's a big robot standing there with his hand on a door, and then the door opens, and the thing looks at him, and it closes. Well, the arm was just tied to the door, and they moved the door. It just looked like the creature did it. And then the same thing inside. There's a puppet. The scene where Sherman and Marshall Bell come in. What do we call that room?
I don't know, but it was so cool. That was my first day of shooting.
There were 14 robots in there, making robots for real.
Yeah.
It was really happening. So we could move the camera, we could do stuff and reset everything and start again. And different angles do the same thing. And you should talk about that. I'm taking up those.
No. This is the John Bruno hour. I'm sorry.
Well, it's all fascinating, and certainly it's always been sort of interesting to me, particularly as we look back at these things from today. That you watch a television. We started out talking about Game of Thrones and how they are all over the world.
Yeah.
With these different units doing different things at different times of the year, but it really never stops. There's always something happening for Game of Thrones and different.
I did do 2 seasons of Star Trek Voyager, and that was, as a television director coming in, you're the guest, right? Like, we can do this without you, but we know there's contracts. There's a Directors Guild, and you show up, and the sets have been built. You're in the middle of some series. They all know where everything is. I had to learn, like, wait a minute, where's the science station? and it's all on the bridge, and you're and just shooting that. The actors know what they're supposed to do. Basically, at first I thought I'm supposed to tell them, and then I would get this. Why don't you watch what I do? And then they do this. I went, oh, okay, yeah, let's do that. But I did storyboard my first one, Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy, because I had all these things that I thought were funny. It was a comedy that I wanted to cut to an angle like this and cut to an angle like that. So I had it in my head. And that show was really, for me, that first Tinker Tenor, of course, Brandon Braga hired me. It was, to me, written by Joe Manosky, who's doing the current CBS Star Trek.
Yeah.
One of the guys working on that. It was actually fun, and the DP was having fun because we were just doing the songs and weird. It was fun. But the one thing that they told me in the beginning, they said, "Well, you realize you have to shoot 8 pages a day." I went 8 pages a day. I've only shot 1.5 pages a day, maybe 3 at my best. And it's like, well, maybe 10 pages a day. And I went, oh my, how does this work? And anyway, they showed me how it worked. That's why you have those walk and talks.
Yeah.
You get off, 2.5 pages, 3 pages, and walk and talk down a corridor. That's what in every show there's got a walk and talk. One angle, and then you look for oneers. That was the big thing that I learned. How do we do a oneer, which can get you through everything with maybe an insert, and you can get through pages. And then I started applying that to live action.
Yeah.
The best at oneers is Scorsese. He opens it with a 5-minute shot, right?
Walking in the
walking
Raging Bull, walking through that, that camera behind, yeah.
So, anyway, did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Oh, it's all fascinating. It's fascinating. Anyway, guys, look, I can't. Sherm, thank you for hooking up.
Before we wrap it up, the Argo story.
Oh.
We cannot kill this until we talk Argo.
Talk about Argo, and when we talk about Argo, we're talking about Argo, the Argo that just popped into people's heads. That movie, with Ben Affleck. But also, we're going to talk about John. Walk the audience through through your portion of the Argo story.
All right, 1979, 1980. There was the Iraq hostage situation.
Iran hostage situation. And through my career, I wanted to be a makeup artist, and my cousin John Inzarella introduced me to John Chambers.
John Chambers, played by John Goodman in the movie. People will remember.
And I spent. I wasn't in the union, but I really, Planet of the Apes. I want to know how to do that, And he would have me. We actually, when I first met him, he showed me how, have me do stuff, mix some, mix materials that could be poured and to make molds and stuff. But I wasn't in the union, so I worked out of his garage in Burbank, right behind Disney Studios. That's as close as I'll get you. But he would that in the so when you're not doing anything, he's really a helpful guy. He became a mentor, and he goes, "I know you want to do this, so I got some work. You can come over to my garage, and we'll just I'll pay you $100, $50. I'm happy to do it." So when they needed designs for characters like Beneath the Planet of the Apes, I think he paid me $100, and I just drew some character sketches. At the time, I was doing Donald Duck comic books at Disney Studios, which paid $45 a week a page if you delivered the pages, or they would mark them up and send them back. I mean, I maybe made $45 a week, and he had me come in and do these sketches, and then he says, I got this other thing that that I may produce this film. You know, Jason and the Argonauts? I went, yeah. He goes, oh, creatures and things. He goes, well, it's, you know, the Argo is the ship from Jason and the Argonauts. I went, yeah. He goes, so, but you have to come in the office to work. So we're setting up an office. And we have some scouts. They're in the Middle East. And they're scouting to see if this can be done. So we need some sketches. I mean, I found out later they had other sketches from Jack Kirby, but I don't know if those are used or not, for real. I mean, the movie, let's not think of the movie for a second. So I would go in there, and I sat in there was a room, you know, 15 by 20, 4 desks in it. There was a coffee machine in front of me that I would make coffee sometimes. And John was in there, in and out. And he would tell me what to draw. And I said, can I see the script? And he goes, no, script shit, you know. And I would draw these sketches, and he'd take them away. And then I didn't even know if they were used. I mean, they were just characters. But I would pin things on the wall. This wasn't a spaceship. It was the sailing ship. And one day he goes out and he comes back and he's got all the pages from. He's got 6 Hollywood reporters. And he goes, here, have this one. There's a big double spread of Argo, and which is not how it looked in the movie. But and then he goes, now when I leave when me and so leave the office, you have to you know, answer the phone. Somebody answers the phone. You say, you know, yes, this is Argo Productions. Okay. So then one day a guy comes in, and he's got a briefcase, and he opens it up next to me, and it's full of $100 bills. And he comes around, and he looks at me, and he goes, how many weeks? I went, 3. And he gives me $400, something like that, cash. And I look at John, and it's like, whoa, what? And he goes, so he just waves it like, it's all right. And I never signed anything. You know, it's like, well, it's cash on the table, don't worry about it. And then the guy, then he and John went out and went to lunch or something. So, and then seeing that in the movie, I kind of went, maybe there was $10,000 in that briefcase.
That's the number. That's the number.
So then to end this quickly, he comes in and goes, hey man, they're all back. I went, oh, so the scouts are back. I don't think there's going to be a movie. I said, I don't know, it's too expensive. I went, oh, okay. And he goes, but what about this? I got this money. He goes, keep the money. Don't worry about it. So that was that. 32 years later, I'm in a theater in Pasadena, and here comes this Argo with John Goodman as John Chambers. And it was as much of a shock to me as anybody. I had no idea. Oh. And I wish they would have, someone from the production at the time, well, they didn't know I existed, would have asked me, because I just have information, you know, about that. Who was in the rooms, who came in and out.
Wow.
But and it was at Vine and Gower Studios, Sunset and Vine, not Warner Brothers.
Did they do it in the movie? Yeah. Anyway, at least we know there was a time when the CIA did not leak. 32 years.
32 years.
32 years.
It's a good secret to keep.
But as far as I'm concerned, John Bruno, you rescued the Iran hostages. You brought them home safe, sir.
Exactly.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Hey guys, thanks for coming by.
Thanks
for
so
talking
much
about virus. Thanks for talking about the business. Thanks for talking about all that special effects stuff. I'm sure the audience would really enjoy it.
They're going to eat it up.
They'll eat it up.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right. Good luck.